All right, welcome back to another episode of Developing Designers. Our guest today is Brooke Philippi, a mechanical engineer in training, and we're going to be talking to her about working in a pod complex, cross-discipline of engineers, architects, all different kinds, versus a standalone, say, mechanical engineering firm or an architecture firm, and see the differences and her own experiences in her career path. Stay tuned. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
Today we're going to talk about your experiences as a new up-and-coming engineer. And answer me this first. How many years have you been out of college, university?
I have been out of college for about 3 years now.
About 3 years now. Okay. All of a sudden, you're now with all the cross disciplines. Talk about that first project. You're now sort of working in a tunnel alone, and now you have this massive team. So talk about that.
Yeah. So in college, you kind of focus more on like concepts and proofs and stuff. And then coming to work in the workforce, you have to apply all that knowledge. So there's lots of questions that come up right away. And working in a pod, you have those opportunities to ask those questions. And then working on project specifics, you have to coordinate so much stuff with other disciplines. I remember on my first project, you get so nervous trying to talk to a bunch of different people you've never met before. Mm-hmm. And EAPC has so many different offices across the Midwest. And my first project was a school out in Western North Dakota. So a lot of the other teammates weren't in the Fargo office. So I didn't have the opportunities to talk to them in person and ask them questions face to face.
Okay. So at university level, were you doing, say, a school? I mean, when you said concepts, talk a little bit about mechanical engineering. This is what, airflow, fluid dynamics? I mean, I'm not a mechanical engineer.
So you learn a lot of like the laws of thermodynamics and fluid flow and everything, but they don't explicitly apply it to real world.
Okay. So you hadn't even tried to do a school?
No.
Okay.
Actually, HVAC isn't something that they teach you in mechanical engineering. It's more of an elective course.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't take that class in school, so I had to learn a lot when I first came here. So learning with the people I work with in person is kind of how I learned a lot of.
How overwhelming was it? That was a leading question because I know it was overwhelming, but.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you leave the comfort of what you've been doing for 4 years and stepping into a new world, it's extremely uncomfortable and nerve-wracking.
When you came from college to EAPC, was that intimidating? Was that?
I'd say it was very intimidating, especially in the sense of I'm freshly out of college. I was 21 at the time. I think I started at EAPC. And coming in, I'm closer in age with a lot of my coworkers' kids than I am with my coworkers. So kind of gauging the social aspect of how I can talk to these people and how I can still be on that business level, but friendly level in that sense. And then also being, I don't want to say like a male dominant field, which it technically is, but that aspect too. And a lot of my coworkers are now males, but there were females, I guess, when I started. So that helped my aspect of it.
When you came to EAPC, again, we're cross-discipline. How many were in the mechanical engineering department in this office?
There was probably like 9 or 10 of us, maybe.
9, 10 engineer or engineers and BIM modelers?
The whole department, I'd say, was 9 to 10 for mechanical in the Fargo office. Yeah.
So that first project, were they giving you tasks to do on your own? Excuse me. Or were they shoulder to shoulder? What style were they working on this project with you?
I'd say it was a little bit of both. At first, it really was like that shoulder to shoulder. I remember sitting at my coworker's desk and just watching her do some things,
Sure.
and then her saying, "Okay, now you go try and do it." And then we'd circle back and
Yep.
review what I did, and I'd go then correct what I had done mistakenly and stuff.
And then over time, they'd start to give you the task that you would do first rather than together, right? And then that was over the shoulder versus shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. It started to just become, here's your list of things I want you to complete, go do it. And now that I've developed kind of 3 years into my career, it's more of the, I know my to-do list and I'll go and do it. And when I hit a roadblock or I just have questions, I'll go ask my teammates kind of how to
Okay.
get over those humps.
So back to that pod concept, our space is fairly open. And so the electrical engineers, which in our space you're sitting immediately adjacent to, describe sort of what that was like, or that environment, or were you overhearing each other, things like that?
I remember when I first started, I was nervous to talk to different departments. I would actually go give my questions to the person I was working with in the mechanical department, and they would go ask
Oh,
the
sure.
questions and kind of relay back to me some of the answers. So it was more of like a step process to get some of the answers I needed that were coordination purposes. But as I grew relationships with people and developed contacts within the department and other disciplines, I can just go directly to them now. Being here in Fargo, a lot of our electrical engineers that we work with on projects are in office. So I'll try to do that face-to-face conversation with them just to build relationships with people and try get more office, not morale, but office conversations, I guess I'll say, versus I feel like a lot of people will hide behind their screens. And I am too, would prefer a Teams message versus a Teams call. But when it comes to messaging someone 2 cubes down, I'd rather just get up and go talk to them, whether it's just stretching my legs or just using my voice for the day.
Right.
But with having multiple different offices across the Midwest, like you do have to become comfortable using technology to talk to different disciplines and stuff.
Right. We have 10 offices in our company, and pulling the curtain back a little bit, many of you eat lunch every day together. You talk about that just a little bit, because that's part of our culture or morale, if you will. But
yeah, I remember when I first started, we didn't have a good lunch space and everyone just ate at their desk. And it was kind of something I was a little sad to see when I first started, because it was, you know, you have this hour break to socialize with people and then you're just eating at your desk, scrolling on your phone. And now once we remodeled and had this great lunch conference space to eat, it's been something I look forward to every day. It's a time to get to know your coworkers on a personal level, not just a business level. And just the jokes that come out of it and the conversations, and you build plans outside of work from it. And it's just a great team building, if anything.
yeah, I come walking through, and Price is Right is on. How did you end up with that show that is mutually accepted?
There's not a lot to choose from for
Okay.
daytime television.
Okay. I didn't know if it was a numbers engineer thing or just
I just kind of fell on it for, you can pay attention to it without paying attention to it. And it becomes interactive. We play along with the contestants and it's fun in that aspect. And we fell in love with the Bob Barker era, which it's so funny because I was born in 2000. So I like to joke that I wasn't born in the 1900s, and being in the...
I was. Thank you.
Being in the Bob Barker
world.
Yeah, everything. I just have no concept of that time. So a lot of jokes come up of, I never would have thought something would be that price, or just talking about things in the past, and then they'll just kind of ramble on about like dial-up internet and all the things I missed out in the 90s.
Oh man, you missed out.
Lots of jokes have come up because of that show.
Well, the reason I mention that is because, again, I walk by, you guys are laughing, you're joking, you're talking. I mean, it feels like a church potluck and things like that. That is so important. That's, I think, so much builds the communication skills and connect it. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Our lunch group is a mixture of the architects, the electricals, the mechanicals,
Yeah.
and we've even bled into another table in our area, and like the interiors and industrial services and structure. We'll go play games there over
Yeah.
lunch sometimes too. So
Yep.
it's fun to have everyone down there, and
Yep.
we try not to talk about work, but sometimes we just talk about projects that we're working on and other people are working on, and you get kind of into some of like the lesson learns and stuff.
Yeah.
And
So on occasion, you're like, "Hey, I forgot to ask. I need you to do this or that in the project."
yeah, we'll definitely kind of have that happen. And sometimes when stragglers come through and they're like, oh, hey, now that I caught you, I'll ask you this quick little question.
Yep.
And
Okay. So again, back to that pod. Imagine that you were a mechanical engineer firm only, and then you're interacting. So try to imagine that in relation to this contrast.
I think coordination would be 10 times harder. I mean, waiting on emails from other offices sometimes makes your design slower, and getting to that final deadline just that much tougher because you have to wait for that final item. And sometimes that item is a big change on the project. Working with other companies, it's not so much a quick phone call and pick up, because sometimes they'll just kind of put your email on a to-do list and get back to it, versus working with people in-house. You can just kind of
Yep.
bug them when you need something.
Yep.
And
So do you feel like this is a better way to learn what, say, they need to put together their engineering and plans because of that communication? Maybe list an example that maybe comes to you, or a stressful moment that coordination,
yeah, a lot of the times on projects, we share mechanical room space with the electrical department. So just laying out that room before we get too ahead of the project to make sure everyone has the space they need and the clearances required. And then on bigger projects, when you're putting large equipment up on the roof or working with a bunch of different electrical loads, getting them their information so they can run that analysis on the building for how big their beams need to be for a piece of rooftop equipment, or adding motors last minute will sometimes drive electrical crazy, but trying to make sure we have all that stuff finalized with a couple weeks before the deadline so they can get all their stuff finalized. It's definitely a give and take relationship of we have to get our stuff to get their answers, but some of the rooms too is we need them to answer questions for us to circle back and give them a different answer on a different question. So
I spent 2+ decades working in an architecture only, and have observed that separate engineering firms, say a mechanical and electrical, because they don't interact as much, they say, well, we have to make a decision and we're going to put it here, and it's up to them to see it. Or the other group says, we're going to do that, but it's up to them. And they're kind of throwing it on each other. In our sense, it would seem that because of the camaraderie and even friendship, there's almost that social aspect, like I wouldn't do that to my friend. And so you have a quick meeting to say, hey, we got to work this space out or this wall out. And then that happened ad hoc before the project even got built, as opposed to you're in the field and now, the owner, the architect, the engineers are kind of looking at each other, and the contractor, and sort of finger pointing. So talk about that a little bit from your experience.
yeah, on projects that get tight with ceiling space and there's not a lot of wiggle room to do coordination with like cable trays and the ductwork and all the plumbing systems above the ceiling grid, it can get pretty tight pretty quick. And if people aren't letting you know, if you coordinate something and then later on the road someone changes that, what you were talked about, if there isn't that communication, it will be a mess when it is getting designed and built in the field. So just being comfortable talking to each other and the aspect of talking to each other goes such a long ways. And I mean, working with other disciplines in EAPC, it becomes fun in the sense of I'll send electrical like a GIF and I'm like, move your light, and it's someone like throwing something or something, and they'll send it right back in the sense of It's no hurt feelings,
Right.
just kind of a give and take relationship.
Well, then it's fun. It's not, yeah. Okay, so we've been asking almost every guest in the last 3 years, what has been one of the most stressful moments of a project that turned into, say, like a great lesson learned for you?
Nothing like is like a crazy one that I can think of.
That's great.
Is it?
I don't know. Well, knowing your team, knowing Alexis and Tyler, who are your you're kind of like the three amigos. Those are the mechanical engineers that, I work with day to day. You have such a good rapport and you interact so well that I think you tend to catch those, like Tyler has such good experience and Anthony, one of our partners. So that's nice. Something always goes wrong, but the fact that something stressful doesn't come up in your mind, I mean, that's great. That really is. That says that you haven't been thrown to the wolves or whatnot. But
There's definitely been those instances, but they've always been resolvable. Some that come to mind is just not going back and double checking some work, especially in bigger buildings, if structure wasn't fully done by the time we were complete, and not verifying that beams and sizes didn't change. We might have a massive duct running somewhere and then it looks good and works, and then all of a sudden it's, oh crap, someone didn't tell me that a beam got bigger and
Yeah.
I didn't check it, and now all of a sudden things aren't fitting where we thought they'd fit. Another instance that comes to mind is we did a fire station and condensate lines weren't exactly how we thought they'd work out, and lengths and sloping wasn't fully thought about when we first designed it. Same with that project, the refrigerant line. We were running lengths further than required or recommended lengths on the manufacturer. So we had to go look at relocating some of the pieces of equipment in the field just so that we can get them closer to where they needed to be. I remember that one pretty well, and I'll always double check my refrigerant piping lengths because of that.
Yeah. It always kicks my mind in, like, I want to know more. There can only be so long or it won't drain because of pressure or things like that. Or, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's always some type of a solution. It's just how far along or maybe how much cost to make that change, right?
Yep. That same project, I think our mechanical room, we weren't expecting it to get as hot in there as we wanted. And a lot of the maintenance guys were complaining that they were working in a room that was too hot. And it was just something we didn't fully think of when we jammed all that equipment in the room. So adding cooling and trying to exhaust that space later in the fact was also kind of a headache. But I mean, it's...
You typically calculate heat off of equipment, correct? That's one of the things you do.
Yep.
But some things are negligible, but as they add up, I don't know, radiant heat off of a pipe or something, right? Is that?
Yeah, that one was...
Those like, we don't really have formulas that...
Some of the equipment will tell you the heat that radiates off of it, especially like in electrical rooms and stuff. But when you're just looking at more of a mechanical based room, it's just something sometimes you don't fully think of, that these pieces of equipment are running all the time. I mean, there's sure to be heat rejection into the room, and it just happened to be a little more than we were expecting, and just had to make some tweaks after that.
Okay. What habits or tools help your team work well together?
For collaboration purposes, I'd say just Teams and Bluebeam is a big one. I mean, me and Alexis work so directly together. We just have a big Bluebeam session purely for us, and we just unload all our documents in there and make comments, even if it's just we have a little conversation and it's
Right.
I'll put it in the Bluebeam session and we'll look at it later kind of thing. Just continuous working documents between the two of us. It just helps with, if she doesn't have the time to come and tell me to do something, she'll just type it in the document and I'll catch it later when I'm looking back at things. Even Teams, you can create like to-do lists between people and pin like PDFs in your chat. And I've done that before with big, long to-do lists. Working with other disciplines, I mean, in Revit, there's so many different add-ins and tools that you can use. And we really stress like a clash preventer, clash detection software, and making sure everyone's using that to make sure everything's fitting and working as one has been a big tool.
So you mentioned electrical and structural. Are those the two that sort of trip you up the most because you need the information back and forth?
I would say every discipline has different things that we need from them and they need from us. When we're designing in the model, I would say plumbing is a big one. And I guess I don't really refer to them as plumbing because they're part of our mechanical department. So I haven't really been mentioning them, but they take up almost the same amount of space as us above the ceiling grid. So more on the clash detection with them has been a big one. And then for information purposes, structure and electrical would probably be bigger on that end, just in the fact of we've got to get them weights and final locations and getting chases organized with architecture and then getting all our motors and stuff for electrical so they can size all their stuff accordingly. So it's kind of a mix of everybody is kind of how it's been working.
For those not familiar with our construction, every project is unique.
Oh, for sure.
So we're not able to do one thing after the other and get to like, we always do this the same way every time. Would you agree with that? Yeah. And so then there's always this back and forth that we needed to accomplish this, which affected the structural, which affected the ductwork, which affected the pipes. Another project, it might be reverse that, where it's not structural, it's actually more mechanical, right?
For sure. And a lot of the times too, if owners make changes halfway down or at the end of a design process, I mean, even if it's just on like the mechanical side and they want a whole different system, like it's going to affect kind of everybody in like a domino effect.
Sure.
So,
okay. Pod or no pod? Now, if EAPC went away and you had to look for another job for whatever reason, would you look for an interdisciplinary firm or would you look for one that would specialize in your discipline only?
I guess I've been lucky where I've been with EAPC since college, and I always say I like what I do, but I love the people I work with better. Mm-hmm. I enjoy coming into the office. I always say I could never be a fully remote worker.
Sure.
Not getting that personable
social interaction.
Social interaction is such a big one, especially for someone my age. It's like I crave the talking and the interactions, and I would say I haven't fully dealt with working with other companies because EAPC is so fortunate to have all of that in-house. Mm-hmm. I would say it's definitely been a lot easier having the pod style at EAPC.
Sure. Our building burned down. What would be a perfect layout for a pod type company in your mind?
I honestly kind of like the style that we have going on where each floor is a different discipline.
Well, you like that?
I like it in the sense of you have to go find that person to go talk to them. And then it's also in the sense of makes the mechanical department kind of like its own little niche. And then I know like the other people, like I call it like structure land. Like I'm going to go talk to the structure department and
have to go through a doorway.
Yeah. You know. And it's just, you get to know those people very close, but you can go walk somewhere else to go talk to other people. And then also in the sense of, it kind of helps with noise. If we were all just one big open floor and everyone's chatting and talking, it gets distracting easily and could get loud really fast.
Well, that's fascinating. As an architect, you know, what type of space would help versus hurt or function better? And I think that's kind of a neat concept that maybe it would be open, but either separate. And of course, we're multi-levels, so we actually have different floors. And so there's not only areas, but you know, you actually go get your steps in too. Neat. Tell me a little bit about your licensure path.
So you have to take a fundamental of engineering exam, and I do recommend taking that either your last year of college or right out of college. Don't wait for that. And after that, you can take your PE exam right after, but you need 4 years of experience in order to get your licensure.
Okay.
And you have to be working under a licensed PE
Okay.
those 4 years.
That first test is so that you have the concepts fresh in your head. Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be your more concepts and proof that you learn in college. It's not so much applying it. And then your PE exam. In the mechanical world, there's different topics that you can take it on. And there's a PE exam geared towards heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And so I would say waiting to take that after you've had those several years of experience, you just gain so much more knowledge than if you were trying to just learn yourself through a textbook and videos online.
Are you competing against anyone in our group to get licensed first?
There is an ongoing joke that Alexis needs to take her PE test. Little birdie told me she has signed up for it. So
Someone who's a few years more your senior.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, she's been able to take it for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So it's
Life
good to
gets-
see.
Life gets in the way. It's in the way.
I am going to say I am kind of glad she's taking it before me so she can give me those tips and pointers and helpful study guides.
We have a couple architecture, they're taking tests, and I'm egging both of them on to beat the other one, which is kind of fun. Just again, camaraderie and, bragging rights and things like that.
No, for sure.
Things that add to our culture again.
Yes.
So,
It was funny. We were actually just talking about that this morning. Tyler was saying he's gonna miss joking about Alexis taking her PE. Once she actually does take it, he won't have a joke to talk about anymore.
right? So I want in on it. I want to start, causing trouble, but I know I shouldn't. So, yeah. Well, thank you. We'd love to have you back and talk more, probably post licensure about maybe how the testing went, and we have a lot more questions for you and some of our staff. So thank you for coming on board today.
Yes, thank you for having me.